Hello, everyone. Welcome once again to Counselor's Couch 101. It's 101 to distinguish it from all the other Counselor's Couch posts on YouTube, right? Counselor's Couch 101. If you would like to send us an email, it's counselorscouch101 at mail.com or leave a comment below. Trying to make this series of posts more relevant to what folks are going through and what could be beneficial to them. Not only that, people have loads of experience and suggestions, good suggestions and ideas that they can share with one another, share with me and share with everybody else. So please do so. If you have ideas that can benefit, let's spread the wealth, right? We're trying to help each other out. Um, a question that often comes up in conversations I have with people is, why do people behave badly, right? And you might ask, well, why would I want to care about why people behave badly? I just want them to stop. Well, sometimes if we can understand the motivation of someone's bad behavior, we can not excuse it, but understand it better, and it doesn't affect us as deeply or as hard as it might if we didn't understand where the behavior is coming from. Um, And even if we're speculating and our speculation is wrong, it gives us a new way to look at other people and a way to get along better with folks just by, walking a mile in their shoes, right? I've heard stories from young men often. They just tell me that for some reason their mother just didn't like them, never liked them. That's what the guy will say. I don't know. I don't know what it was. She just never liked me. And I stop and I think about that and I say, well, I'm wondering, this is something I heard long ago in a conversation with an elderly lady. She asked me regarding a person we were talking about. She said, who looks most like his father, right? We were discussing that. And I said, well, you think about it. I think he does. I think he resembles his father more than his brothers do. And she said that maybe that's the reason the mother is behaving badly toward him. She might not even know she's doing it, but if she sees her ex-husband, in the boy, and she can't help it, she's just sort of acting out her anger and trying to get rid of some of the negativity she's feeling, and she may not even be aware she's doing it. So that could be a motivation. Um, I remember seeing at a baseball game, we're talking about 10, 11-year-old boys, right, playing baseball. And this grown man was in the stands right behind the home plate. And he was calling out insults to the boys who were trying to hit the ball. And I was greatly offended by that because I know how much it can affect those kids. They're just standing out there trying to do something. They don't really need an audience standing there telling them how bad they're doing and how lousy they are at a skill that they're trying to learn. But this guy was just going on and just, laughing at them or ridiculing them. I wanted to go over and bash his brains in, to tell you the truth, right? And I wanted the umpire to do something about it. And fortunately, that's what happened. After a while, the umpire stopped the game. He turned around, took his mask off, and he looked at the guy and said, if you don't stop that, I'm going to have you banned from this park. He says, I mean it. And other guys in the audience, men, said the same thing, man. Yeah, cool it. Let the boys play the game like that. And you sit there and you wonder, why would he do such a hurtful thing? I imagine that man who was calling out the insults had been hurt in his time by someone else. Probably it could have been like a father or an older brother, an uncle. Could have been people in the neighborhood. Could have been lots of things. We pick up our hurts and our ills in all sorts of places, right? They don't necessarily have to come exclusively from family. I'm reminded of that oftentimes because I'm a great one for looking back and say, okay, where did this behavior come from? I'm talking with someone who's doing something that's not working for them and they want to change it and they don't know why. They just keep doing the same bad thing over and over again. And by bad, I don't mean something horrible. I mean just like something socially less agreeable. Is that a way to describe it? Socially less agreeable, and they can't seem to stop doing it. Something is motivating that behavior. Something is triggering it. Something is boiling up in them that they have to release. And before they know what they're doing, they're saying something that's snippy or unkind or, slightly rude. And they don't know why they do it, and they're trying to stop it. Um, they start to figure out where it came from. You know, I remember this one gentleman was telling me, he said, I remember I had an uncle who was always putting down his son. His son was the guy's cousin, and the cousin was enraged by the behavior and was, of course, not big enough to stand up to his father and like that. So the cousin was taking it out on this guy. And so this guy picked up a lot of rage that he had secondhand from his cousin, from his uncle to his cousin to him. That's where he picked it up, right? And he was trying to get over it, but once again, he was a younger cousin to the cousin who was being abused, and so it all got dumped on him in a way that was unfair. He couldn't stand up for himself at that time, not physically and not emotionally, and he didn't have enough social skills to fend it off, right? So he downloaded all this negative behavior, and once he started to realize that, he was able to dissect it and to slow down in his own reactions in life and to note when he was going to say something that maybe might have been hurtful to someone else. And he was able to say, okay, I need to not do that anymore. I need, first of all, to recognize that I'm doing it. I need to understand where it's coming from, and I need to counteract it. Oftentimes in situations like that, you've probably all heard the saying, count to 10 like that. Well, pretty much that's what I told him. I said, just take a moment to calm down before you say anything, before you react, right? And so that was working for him, but it helped him to know where it came from, right? I'm reminded of a scene in Top Gun. I hope you've all seen it. I hate it when I mention a movie and no people say they don't know anything. They don't know what I'm talking about. Makes me feel old. Top Gun. I think it was 1985. I think it was 1985. So what's that? That's 37 years ago. Time flies. But anyway, check that out. I may be wrong on the year, but there's been some time. There was a scene in it where the Iceman and the guy that flies with him, the REO, right? That officer, they were saying something against the Tom Cruise character, right? And then they walked away and all that. And Tom Cruise's buddy, right, Goose, he says to him, they were abused children. And the thing of it is probably true. People who behave badly like that probably were abused children. And so that doesn't excuse the behavior, but it helps us understand it so we don't take it so much to heart. We realize that they're venting the negativity that's welled up inside of them, the negativity that's hurting them. And if we can speak to it, sometimes we can diffuse it, right? You have to be pretty clever on how you do it, because if you just say, you're an abused kid or something of that sort, it may not carry enough weight of a suggestion in order to get a behavior change. But if you can figure out some way to communicate and speak to the person that's hurt inside there, right? That could go a long way toward, alleviating that sort of a behavior and stress on your life from that person. It's reminded me of another movie, probably an old movie too. Seabiscuit. Great movie, I think. I love that movie. But in the first race, when the red takes Seabiscuit out on the race and like that, and he starts to run down another horse and jockey because he thought he had been fouled, and he's really, really angry and he's screaming about it. And the fact that he was trying to get even with the guy that fouled him caused him to lose the race. And the trainer is telling the kid, he said, "Why did you do that? We had a plan. Stick to the plan." And Red says to him, "He fouled me. You want me to just let him foul me like that?" And the trainer says, "Yeah, when he's not going to win, yeah, let him foul you. We are focused on what we're trying to accomplish. We don't want to get sidetracked by some anger that we have built up somewhere." The anger that's in us that causes us to change our game plan and lose the race, right? Then the owner says to the kid, he says, "Son, who are you mad at?" Right? And that was a good question. That's the kind of thing that we was describing a minute ago. When we can identify a behavior and a possible source to it, if we can speak to that, we can get the behavior to change possibly, right? And I'm not trying to beat up the other person, the one who's committing the social mistake. just trying to bring awareness to somebody that they might want to change on their own. We don't need to ask them to change. We ask them to be aware of the behavior and where it's coming from, so they might want to change it. I hate bullies. I hate bullies that sit in stands and scream at kids. That's eh, don't like that. And we've heard of adults getting into fights over kids' games, right, and things like that. And it comes from that sort of behavior when an adult's behaving badly, you know, toward the kids. Other adults are offended by it. The adult who's offended has been triggered because probably that adult who's been triggered was treated badly as a child too and had no defense against it, right? There was um, there was a famous case of a fan from San Francisco was attending a Dodgers game here in Los Angeles, and it turns out that he was beaten up in the parking lot after the game, right? And when I heard that in the beginning, they said, we don't understand it. These are horrible people that beat this guy up and in the parking lot and all that. They must have been gang members and etc. When I heard that story before anyone had done any research into the circumstances or to what took place in the stands, I knew exactly what had happened because I'd been to Dodger Stadium, and fans from other teams will go into Dodger Stadium and they will loudly criticize and condemn and laugh at the Dodgers. And what happens is it spoils the game for everyone else who is sitting there watching the game and listening to this abuse, this loud abuse. I was certain that the guy that got beat up from San Francisco had done something like that, and that's why he was taken care of in the parking lot after the game. I was sure of it. And sometime later, when they went to explore the situation and that, they spoke to this gentleman who was a season ticket holder for the Dodgers game, and he was there, and he was in that section of the stands when that person was calling out all this negative stuff. The person that got beat up in the parking lot, right? And he said he walked up to him at one point, and he said to the guy, he said, "Look, man, we're all just here trying to enjoy the game. Do you suppose you could dial it down a little bit?" And apparently the heckler did not dial it down. He made a lot of people angry. And that's where that comes from. People are reacting. They've been triggered by the abuse. This guy was abusing their team. He was spoiling the afternoon for all the folks who was watching the game. And folks who were being annoyed by it were triggered. They wanted it to stop. They wanted to send a message. Is that the right way to go? No. But of course, it's not the right way to sit there and heckle a team and try to spoil the day for other people as well, right? So I understood the behavior of the people who beat the guy up. I think they were arrested and paid a price, but I did get where it's coming from. They were triggered because of probably the abuse that they've experienced in their lives, and now they have to listen to it again, and they paid a lot for the ticket, right? If we can understand the behavior of people, and I admire the guy, this season ticket holder who walked up, forgive me, folks, I admire that guy who walked up to the San Francisco fan and asked him to dial it down. That was the right thing to do, right? He addressed it and without violence, and he hadn't been part of the altercation that took place in the parking lot. He spoke to it, right? He stood up to it. At least he tried to make an improvement for all of those who were suffering the abuse of listening to this guy criticize the game and spoil the afternoon. I seem to get off the track, and I apologize, but the whole point is, if we can understand other people's behavior and if we can speak to it, sometimes we can diffuse it. And one of the greatest advantages or benefits of it is if we can diffuse our own response to something that's been done to us, something negative, some sort of an insult, right? A social wound of sorts or a criticism. If we can dial it down in ourselves, then we can find a place of equilibrium and peace and move on in life. We don't want to store that stuff up because it makes us, they say all work and no play makes a dull boy. Well, absorbing all that stuff makes resentful human beings and adults. It's not a good place to try to relate to folks in the world from. We need to get rid of it in ourselves. So if we can dissipate some of the resentment we carry by understanding what happened to other people, then I say it's a good thing to do. Let's see where these things came from and how they're playing out in your life right now. Let's release them, put them out of ourselves and let them go off and harm no one else any longer. And then we become happier, we become more peaceful, we become better people, so to speak. And that works for us and it works for the people around us. So let's try to understand one another. Why do bad people do the things they do? If we can understand that, sometimes it helps us get through the day. Just a thought. Thanks for dropping by. I look forward to talking with you next time. Don't forget,